My name is Alaska. I'm 26 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the kind of woman who doesn't fit easily into the mold of what people call a complete family. I live alone in a small apartment on the quiet side of the city, where the evenings feel longer than they should and silence sometimes presses against the walls. I don't have parents who call me every day, no siblings nearby to check on me. For the last 4 years, my only real companion, my only family, has been my dog Gimme. Gimme wasn't just a pet. She was my anchor in the storm of loneliness. A golden-furred, bright-eyed creature with more warmth in her than most humans I had ever met. She knew when I came home exhausted from work, when my tears slipped silently at night, and when my heart felt empty. Somehow, she always knew. With a tilt of her head or the gentle press of her paw on my lap, she reminded me that I wasn't as alone as I thought. And maybe that's why it hurt so much when she suddenly fell sick. It started subtly, small things, the kind of things you convince yourself are nothing. She ate a little less, slept a little more, and her usual playful bark turned softer, weaker. At first, I thought it was just exhaustion. Maybe the weather, maybe something minor. But within days, her condition spiraled. She stopped finishing her meals altogether, and the once bright spark in her eyes dimmed into a dull, pained glaze. Her breathing grew heavy at night, and I lay awake, listening to every strained sound, terrified that if I closed my eyes, she might not be there in the morning. I rushed her to a local vet, panic heavy in my chest. They gave her injections, vitamins, some medicines, and reassured me it was nothing too serious. Give it a few days, they said. But a few days later, Gimme collapsed on the living room floor, her tiny body shaking, and in that moment, something inside me broke. I tried everything, different clinics, different doctors, pills, treatments, desperate calls in the middle of the night to anyone who could help. Each time I hoped, each time I believed that maybe this would be the cure, maybe this would save her. And each time, nothing changed. She grew weaker, and I grew more helpless. I spent my nights kneeling beside her bed, stroking her fur as tears blurred my vision. I whispered promises she couldn't understand. Don't leave me, Gimme. Please, just don't leave me. Because the truth was, she wasn't just my dog. She was the thread holding my fragile world together. Without her, the silence of my apartment would swallow me whole. I thought back to when I first brought her home, a tiny ball of fur barely able to climb onto the couch. I remembered the way she used to run in circles every time I picked up her leash, the way she nudged her nose against my hand when I felt too heavy with sadness to speak. She was there when I couldn't face anyone else, when friends faded, when family drifted away. And now, when she needed me the most, I couldn't fix her. The frustration tore at me as much as the grief did. I hated how powerless I was, how useless all the treatments seemed. I sat with receipts, prescriptions, and medical notes scattered across my kitchen table, but none of it mattered. Money couldn't guarantee her healing. My love couldn't stop her suffering. All I could do was hold her, feed her spoonfuls of water, and pray into the silence of my empty room. There were moments, late at night, when I wondered if the universe was cruelly reminding me of what I had always feared, that everything I loved was temporary, that I was destined to be left alone again. But even in her weakest state, Gimme would sometimes lift her head and press it against my arm, as if telling me to stop crying, as if comforting me instead of the other way around. That made the pain even sharper. Each day blurred into the next, appointments, medicines, sleepless nights. My coworkers noticed the dark circles under my eyes, but I brushed them off with forced smiles. I didn't tell them the truth, that my heart was breaking because my only family was slipping away. One evening, after another round of injections from yet another clinic, I carried Gimme home in my arms. Her head rested against my chest, her breathing shallow, her body light like she had lost more than just strength, like she was losing her fight. I sat down on the floor of my apartment, still holding her, rocking her gently as though she were a child. And in that moment, desperation swallowed me whole. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who else to trust. I pressed my forehead to hers, whispering, "I can't lose you. You're all I have." That night, I realized something. I was willing to do anything to save her. I just didn't know where to turn next. And somewhere, in the midst of that fear and despair, a name came to me. A name I hadn't heard before, but one that would change everything. Dr. Sophia. The night I first heard about her, I was sitting on the cold tiled floor with Gimi in my lap, scrolling through forums and late-night advice columns on pet care. Most posts said the same thing: find a better vet, get a second opinion. I thought bitterly that I had already tried. But then I stumbled upon a comment in a small online group: if nothing is working, try Dr. Sophia's clinic. She cares, not just treats. The words clung to me. She cares, not just treats. At 2 in the morning, I copied down the address like it was a lifeline. The next day, I drove across town, Gimi curled up weakly in the back seat. My chest felt tight as I parked outside the clinic, a modest little building with a pale blue sign that simply read, Sophia's Veterinary Care. There was nothing flashy about it, no neon lights, no loud banners. But something about its simplicity gave me hope. Inside, the clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. It was quiet, calm, the kind of place where even a human heart could rest. And then I saw her. Sophia. She was standing behind the counter, speaking gently to an older man holding a small cat carrier. Her dark hair was tied loosely at the back, a few strands brushing her face as she bent down to smile at the man's pet. Her voice was soft, but firm in a way that reassured. I don't know if it was the exhaustion or the desperation clinging to me, but in that moment, she felt like light in a room I didn't realize had been so dark. When it was my turn, I carried Gimi to her, my arms trembling not just from his weight, but from the weight of my fear. Sophia looked at me, then down at him, and without hesitation, she reached out with careful hands. "Let's take a look at you, sweetheart," she murmured, not to me, but to Gimi. The way her voice softened, the way her hands steadied, it made something tighten in my throat. I explained everything, every failed treatment, every sleepless night, every moment of despair. She listened without interrupting, her eyes steady on mine, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like someone wasn't brushing my pain aside. She didn't rush me, didn't dismiss me with rehearsed answers. She just listened, then gently took Gimi into her arms and carried him to the examination table. Her movements were precise yet tender. She checked his breathing, ran her fingers gently along his ribs, pressed her stethoscope against his chest. Every time Gimi whimpered, she whispered soothing words, as though she could convince his body to heal through kindness alone. "It's okay," she said softly, stroking his ear. "We're going to help you feel better." Something in her tone carried conviction, not the hollow kind I'd heard from others. This felt different. Real. She prescribed a new treatment plan, different medications, a change in diet, and most importantly, careful monitoring. She explained everything in simple words, never making me feel foolish for asking questions. Before I left, she touched my arm lightly and said, "Don't lose hope yet. I've seen cases like this. Let's give him a chance." Her touch lingered even after I walked out the door. That night, I sat beside Gimi, giving him the first dose of his new medicine, and for the first time in weeks, my fear didn't feel so suffocating. Days passed, and I found myself back at the clinic more often, sometimes because I had a legitimate reason, sometimes because I just needed the reassurance of her presence. And slowly, unbelievably, Gimi began to improve. His breathing eased. He started eating again, small bites at first, then more eagerly. One morning, he wagged his tail weakly when I called his name, and I nearly cried from the relief. I couldn't deny the truth. Sophia had given me back more than Gimi's health. She had given me back hope. Each time I visited, I noticed new things about her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated. The small smile she gave each pet before handing them back to their owners, as though she was silently blessing them with strength. The tired lines around her eyes that told me she worked too hard, cared too much. And every time she spoke to me, I felt myself leaning in, caught in the warmth of her voice. I told myself it was gratitude. That's all. That the flutter in my chest when she brushed past me, the way my pulse quickened when she smiled, it was just relief, just admiration. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. One afternoon, as I watched her crouch on the floor to coax a frightened puppy out from under a chair, I caught myself thinking something I couldn't unthink. She didn't just heal my dog, she touched something inside me I thought had died. And once that thought entered, it didn't leave. Every visit became less about Gimi's checkups and more about seeing her again. I began noticing the smallest details, the way she tilted her head when she listened to me, the faint scent of her perfume, the way her laughter filled the quiet clinic like sunlight. I started making excuses, asking unnecessary questions, dropping by with Gimi for just-in-case concerns. She never made me feel like a burden. If anything, she always seemed glad to see me, though maybe I only imagined that. But whether I imagined it or not, one thing had become clear. In the middle of sickness, fear, and despair, I had found something I hadn't been looking for. Or maybe someone. The morning I woke up to find Gimi standing at the edge of my bed, tail wagging with real strength for the first time in weeks, I nearly burst into tears. She barked softly, nudging me with her nose like she used to, as if to say, "I'm back, don't cry anymore." I scooped her into my arms, burying my face into her golden fur, overwhelmed with relief. It felt like I had been pulled back from the edge of losing everything. I couldn't stop thinking about how none of this would have been possible without Sophia. She had given Gimi his life back, and in some quiet way, she had given me mine too. I went to the clinic that day, not because I had to, but because I needed Sophia to see the miracle she had made possible. When she came out from the examination room, I rushed toward her, Gimi trotting happily by my side. "She's herself again," I said, my voice trembling with joy. "She's eating, she's playing, she's back." The way Sophia smiled then, it was different from the professional calm she always carried. It was warm, unguarded, almost proud. She bent down, scratched Gimi behind the ears, and whispered, "Good girl. I knew you had it in you." I stood there watching, and something swelled in my chest so powerfully it scared me. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, something softer. After that, I found it harder and harder to stay away. I told myself I had good reasons. Maybe Gimi needed an extra checkup. Maybe I had questions about her diet. Maybe I just wanted to thank Sophia again. But in truth, I simply wanted to see her, and every time I came, Sophia welcomed me without hesitation. She'd ask about Gimi, of course, but also about me, how my week was going, how I was handling work, what I liked to do outside of worrying over my dog. It wasn't forced small talk, she seemed genuinely interested. Slowly, she started sharing pieces of herself too. She told me how she'd wanted to be a vet since she was a child, how animals had always felt like her truest companions. She spoke about the long hours, the exhaustion, the heartbreak of not being able to save every patient, but also the joy that kept her going, the way a dog's wagging tail or a cat's purr made it all worth it. I listened to her like I was memorizing every word. Sometimes, when the clinic wasn't busy, she'd make us both coffee from the small machine tucked in the back. We'd sit at the corner table, Gimi curled at my feet, and talk like two friends who'd known each other longer than we really had. I remember one afternoon clearly. Rain tapped against the clinic windows, and the world outside was gray and heavy. But inside, with the warmth of coffee in my hands and Sophia's laughter filling the air, it felt bright. She was telling me about the time a parrot had flown loose in the clinic, swooping over everyone's heads while she tried desperately not to laugh in front of the panicked owner. Her laughter was contagious, rich, and genuine. I found myself laughing too, even though my chest tightened each time I looked at her, each time I realized how much space she had begun to take up in my heart. She noticed me watching her then. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us looked away. My pulse raced, and I broke the gaze first, pretending to sip my coffee. But the moment lingered long after. It was subtle, the way my admiration began to twist into something else. At first, I told myself it was just a crush, a fleeting feeling born from gratitude and the glow of relief after weeks of despair. But the more I saw her, the harder it became to deny that it was more than that. It was the way my heart leapt when her hand brushed mine as she handed me a cup. The way I thought about her long after I left the clinic. The way her smile carried me through my loneliest evenings. One night, as I lay in bed with Gimi curled against me, I whispered into the dark, "I think I'm falling for her." Saying it out loud made it real, and it terrified me. Because what did I have to offer her? She was kind, compassionate, strong. I was just a woman clinging to her dog for comfort, stumbling through life in an apartment that felt too empty. And yet, whenever I saw the way her eyes softened when she looked at me, whenever her laughter rang too easily in my company, a dangerous hope took root inside me. Maybe it wasn't just me. Maybe, just maybe, she felt something too. That hope, fragile as it was, kept me returning to the clinic, kept me finding excuses just to sit across from her, to listen to her voice, to catch those small moments of connection. I had gone there once in desperation to save my dog. Now I went because I couldn't imagine a week without seeing her. And every time I left, I carried the same thought with me, pulsing quietly in the back of my mind. She didn't just heal Gimme. She healed something inside me I thought was broken forever. For days, I wrestled with the thought of asking Sophia to dinner. The idea alone made my palms sweat. It wasn't just dinner, not really. It was a step into something deeper, something more vulnerable. What if she saw through me? What if she realized how much I longed for her and stepped back, politely but firmly, leaving me with nothing but silence and regret? But the other possibility, that she might say yes, burned brighter than my fear. One late afternoon, as Gimme sat happily on the clinic floor gnawing on a chew toy Sophia had given her, I gathered every ounce of courage I had. Sophia was writing notes in a patient file, her pen moving quickly across the page when I spoke. Sophia? My voice cracked and I cleared my throat. Would you, maybe, like to come over for dinner sometime? I'd like to thank you properly for everything you've done for Gimme. And for me. Her pen stopped. For a moment, I thought I had ruined everything. But then she looked up at me, and her lips curved into that warm smile I had come to crave. I'd love to, she said simply. The relief that washed over me was almost dizzying. I managed to nod, to smile back, though inside I felt like a child who had just been handed the world. The night of the dinner, I cleaned my apartment as though Sophia's opinion of me depended on every speck of dust. I cooked nervously, burning the first batch of pasta before starting again. Gimme followed me everywhere, her tail wagging like she sensed my excitement. When the doorbell finally rang, my heart lurched into my throat. I opened the door, and there she was standing with a small bouquet of flowers in her hand, wearing a soft cardigan over her blouse. She looked simple, effortless, beautiful. "These are for you," she said, holding out the flowers. "And for Gimme too." I laughed, flustered, taking them from her. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she replied, stepping inside. The evening unfolded in a way that felt almost unreal. We sat at my small dining table, candles flickering softly, plates steaming with food that I prayed tasted better than it looked. To my relief, she complimented everything, whether out of kindness or truth. I didn't care. We talked easily, laughter bubbling up between us like it had always belonged there. Gimme trotted happily around, climbing onto Sophia's lap at one point as though she had known her forever. Sophia stroked her fur absent-mindedly as we spoke, and the sight of the two beings I loved most in the world sitting together nearly undid me. "You have a lovely home," she said, glancing around. "It feels warm." Warm. The word settled deep in me. My apartment had always felt quiet, sometimes painfully so. But tonight, with Sophia here, with laughter bouncing off the walls and Gimme curled between us, it did feel warm. Alive. At one point, as I was pouring us both more wine, Sophia caught my gaze. She held it for a moment longer than necessary, and something unspoken passed between us. My pulse quickened, my breath hitched, and I looked away too quickly, afraid of what she might see in my eyes. But inside, hope sparked. Maybe this wasn't one-sided. Maybe she, too, felt something flicker between us, something she didn't quite name but didn't push away either. When the evening finally drew to a close, I walked her to the door, not wanting the night to end. She paused, looking at me with that soft, steady expression that always made me feel both safe and exposed. "Thank you for tonight, Alaska," she said. "I had a wonderful time." "Me too," I whispered, meaning it more than I could ever explain. As she stepped out into the night, bouquet of flowers now resting on my table, I leaned against the closed door, my heart racing, my lips curved into a smile I couldn't contain. For the first time, the fragile hope inside me no longer felt foolish. Maybe this isn't one-sided, I thought. Maybe, just maybe, she feels it too. The days after our dinner felt different, as though something between us had shifted ever so slightly. Our conversations at the clinic carried a new warmth, pauses filled with meaning instead of silence. Each time I caught Sophia's eyes lingering on me, my heart stuttered. But along with that fragile hope came fear. I couldn't keep pretending. The feelings that had started as quiet admiration were now a storm I couldn't hide. I knew I had to tell her. One evening, after Gimi's routine checkup, I stayed behind while the other clients left. The clinic was hushed, the faint scent of lavender still in the air. Sophia was putting away files when I spoke, my voice trembling. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you." She looked up, her expression soft but curious. "What is it?" I swallowed hard, my palms damp. "I don't know how to say this without sounding foolish, but these past weeks, you've been more than just Gimi's doctor to me. You've been a light in a time when I felt like I was drowning. And somewhere along the way, I realized I care about you. Not just as a friend or a doctor." My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. "I think I'm falling for you." The silence that followed was unbearable. Sophia blinked, her lips parting slightly as if she hadn't expected this. She didn't speak right away. Her eyes flickered with something, surprise, hesitation, maybe even fear. My heart sank. Alaska, she began slowly. I wasn't expecting this. She set the file down, stepping closer. "You're an incredible woman. I admire your strength, the way you love Gimi. But I need a moment. This is a lot." I nodded quickly, embarrassment heating my face. "I understand." "I shouldn't have." "Don't," she interrupted gently. "Don't apologize. Just give me a little time to think." Those next few days were torture. I replayed the moment over and over in my head, analyzing every look, every pause. Maybe I had ruined everything. Maybe she would pull away completely. But when she called me 3 nights later, her voice soft over the phone, my heart leapt. "Can we meet?" she asked. We met at a small cafe near the park, a quiet place where the world seemed to move slower. She looked beautiful in her simplicity, a loose sweater, hair tucked behind her ears. She smiled faintly when she saw me, though her eyes still held that contemplative shadow. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began once we sat down. "About us." My chest tightened. I gripped my cup of tea to steady myself. "I won't lie," she continued. "Part of me is scared. I've always been careful about opening up. But when I'm with you, I feel something I can't ignore. You make me laugh, you make me feel seen. And that's rare." Her words sank into me like sunlight breaking through clouds. "So," she said, a small, tentative smile tugging at her lips, "if you're still willing, I'd like to see where this could go." Relief and joy crashed over me so strongly I almost cried. Instead, I reached across the table, my hand trembling as it brushed against hers. She didn't pull away. She turned her palm upward, letting our fingers intertwine. Our first date was nothing extravagant. We walked through the park after finishing our tea, the evening air crisp around us. Leaves crunched under our feet, and the world seemed quieter than usual, as though it was holding its breath for us. At one point, she stopped to adjust Gimi's leash, and when she stood again, her hand slipped naturally into mine. My heart hammered, but it felt right, as though it had always been meant to fit there. We talked about small things, favorite books, childhood memories, silly stories about patients at her clinic. But beneath it all was the unspoken awareness that this was something new, something delicate and precious. As we neared the edge of the park, Sophia slowed, her eyes meeting mine in the dim glow of the streetlights. "I'm not great at this," she admitted softly. "But, may I?" Before I could even nod, she leaned in and brushed her lips against mine. It was the gentlest kiss, brief but enough to send warmth flooding through me. I closed my eyes, savoring the softness, the sweetness, the reality of her. When she pulled back, we both smiled shyly, as though we'd stumbled into a secret too beautiful to name. Walking home that night, Gimme trotting happily between us, I felt something I hadn't in years. Alive. For so long, loneliness had been my constant shadow, whispering that I was destined to walk through life alone. But now, holding Sophia's hand, the ghost of her kiss still lingering on my lips, I knew it wasn't true. For the first time in years, I whispered to myself, I'm not alone. The weeks that followed felt like slipping into a dream I never wanted to wake from. Sophia and I began to see each other more often, not just at the clinic or by chance, but deliberately, because we wanted to. It was in the way she called me after a long day to ask if I had eaten, or how I found myself driving to her favorite bakery just to bring her the chocolate croissants she loved. Our connection deepened with every shared glance, every quiet evening together, and every laugh that lingered long after the moment passed. Our dates were simple, but that's what made them beautiful. Once, we spent an entire Saturday wandering through a farmer's market, weaving through the stalls with Gimme trotting proudly at our side. Sophia would stop to smell fresh herbs or pick up a basket of peaches, her eyes lighting up in a way that made my heart swell. I bought her a small bunch of wildflowers from an old woman at the edge of the market, and the way Sophia blushed, tucking one behind her ear, felt more precious than any grand gesture. Flowers just for me, she teased, but her voice carried a softness that told me she treasured them. Always for you, I said before I could stop myself. And instead of pulling away, she squeezed my hand and held it tightly as we walked. There were evenings when she came over after work, still in her scrubs, exhausted but smiling. I'd make us tea, and we'd sit on the couch with Gimme curled between us. She'd rest her head against my shoulder, her breathing evening out as if just being there brought her peace. Sometimes we didn't speak at all, and it was in those silences that I realized how deeply I craved her presence. One night, when rain tapped gently against the windows, she admitted something to me in a whisper. You make me feel safe, she said. Like I can let my guard down. I held her hand, pressing it to my chest. That's how you make me feel too. It wasn't just romance that bloomed between us, but a partnership in small, everyday ways. When my car broke down one afternoon, Sophia came to pick me up without hesitation, teasing me about my ancient engine, but never letting me feel like a burden. And when she had a rough day at the clinic, after losing a patient she had tried desperately to save, I showed up at her apartment with takeout, a warm blanket, and quiet companionship. She didn't need me to fix anything, she just needed me to be there, and I was. Our bond wasn't measured in grand declarations, but in small gestures that stitched our hearts closer together. Gimme, my sweet Gimme, became the heart of our story. She adored Sophia, following her around the house and wagging her tail in pure devotion whenever she arrived. Sometimes I joked that Gimme liked Sophia more than me. Maybe she knows I'm the one sneaking her extra treats, Sophia laughed one afternoon, scratching Gimme's ears as we sprawled on the living room rug. But it was more than that. I could see how Gimme looked at her with trust, with love. It mirrored the way I felt. Somehow, in caring for my dog, Sophia had reached into the parts of me I thought were untouchable. As our days together turned into weeks, I began to imagine a future with her. I pictured mornings where we'd share coffee in the kitchen, her hair still tousled from sleep. I pictured holidays, laughter echoing through a warm home, maybe even more dogs running through the yard. I imagined the simple, beautiful life of us. It was terrifying to let myself hope after so many years of loneliness. But every time Sophia reached for my hand, every time she kissed me goodnight at my doorstep, the fear loosened its grip a little more. One evening, after dinner at my place, we sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. Gimme lay at our feet, dozing contentedly. Sophia leaned into me, her warmth chasing away the night's chill. Do you ever think about the future? I asked quietly. She tilted her head, considering. Sometimes. But the future is hard to predict. Life, it's unpredictable. I hesitated, then said, I think about it a lot. About you, me, Gimme, all of this. Sophia turned her gaze to me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. For a moment, I thought she might pull away, but instead she reached up and touched my cheek, her thumb brushing gently against my skin. I don't know what the future holds, she whispered, but right now, I want this. I want us. Those words became my anchor. They weren't promises of forever, but they were real, and they were hers. And that was enough. As the days passed, love wove itself into our routines. Sophia left little notes in my kitchen when she stayed over, simple things like have a good day, beautiful, or don't forget to feed Gimme extra hugs. I surprised her at the clinic with coffee on mornings when I knew she had surgery scheduled. We carved out small rituals that felt like home: Sunday breakfasts, late-night walks, whispered confessions under the covers. I was healing, and so was she. With Sophia, I began to believe that love wasn't about fixing broken pieces, but about holding them gently and learning to live with the cracks. Gimme would often lie between us on the couch, her head resting on Sophia's lap while I stroked her fur. Watching them together filled me with a quiet certainty. This wasn't just a chapter in my life, it felt like the beginning of a whole new story. Love, care, healing, all the things I thought I had lost had found their way back to me through her. And though I didn't know what twists the future might hold, in those moments, it felt like we were invincible. For a while, life felt like a miracle I didn't deserve. Sophia was in my arms, in my days, in my dreams. Every stolen kiss, every shared laugh, every quiet night wrapped in each other's warmth made me believe I had finally outrun the loneliness that haunted me for years. But life has a cruel way of placing shadows in the brightest corners. It was a Sunday evening when the truth began to unravel. I had invited Sophia and Gimme to the park. The autumn air was crisp, golden leaves scattering under our feet as we walked hand in hand. Sophia was quieter than usual. Her smile came slower, her laughter more fleeting. I brushed it off at first, thinking she was tired from another grueling week at the clinic. We sat on a bench while Gimme chased after a stick. I reached for Sophia's hand, but this time she pulled away gently. Alaska. Her voice trembled, and the sound of it made my chest tighten. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said a long time ago. My pulse quickened. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes told me this wasn't about being tired. I've been keeping something from you, she whispered. And it's not fair to you. Or to me. My throat went dry. What is it? She inhaled sharply, her fingers twisting the hem of her coat. I'm not single. I've been in a relationship for years. It's complicated, and it's falling apart, but it still exists. I didn't plan to fall for you, Alaska. I swear I didn't. But I did. And now I feel like I'm living in two worlds, and it's tearing me apart. The words hit me like shards of ice. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. The park around us blurred, children laughing, leaves rustling, Gimme barking in the distance. None of it felt real. You're with someone else? My voice cracked, fragile and raw. Sophia's eyes finally met mine, brimming with tears. Yes, but it's not what you think. We've been distant for so long. I thought it was over, that I was just waiting for the courage to let go. And then you came into my life, and everything changed. I didn't expect you. I didn't expect to feel this. Anger and heartbreak crashed through me in waves. I stood up, pacing, my hands trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Why let me believe? Why let me hope? Because I didn't want to lose you, she said, her voice breaking. And I was selfish. I kept telling myself I'd find the right time, but the longer I waited, the harder it became. Tears burned in my eyes. So, what am I to you, Sophia? A secret? A mistake? She shook her head fiercely. No, you're not a mistake. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. You've reminded me what love feels like. You've made me feel alive again. But the truth is, I've been a coward. And now I'm afraid I've ruined everything. Gimme returned with the stick, dropping it at Sophia's feet, tail wagging. The innocence of her gesture pierced me like a knife. Gimme adored her. I adored her. And yet, the foundation of everything we'd built felt like it was crumbling beneath us. My voice shook as I whispered, you should have trusted me enough to tell me from the start. I know, she said, tears spilling freely now. And I hate myself for it. But Alaska, please believe me when I say my feelings for you are real. They're the truest thing I've ever felt. The words twisted like barbed wire in my chest. I wanted to believe her. God, I did believe her. But belief didn't erase the pain. The walk back to the car was silent, heavy with everything left unsaid. Sophia reached for my hand once, but I pulled away. I couldn't bear the touch, not when my heart was splitting open. That night, lying awake with Gimi curled at my side, the reality sank in. I had fallen in love with someone whose life wasn't fully hers to give. And now I was left with a choice, to walk away and protect what little was left of my heart, or to stay and risk being consumed by a love built on broken ground. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel hope. I felt shattered. The days after Sophia's confession stretched like shadows, long, heavy, and impossible to escape. Every hour seemed haunted by her face, her laughter, her touch. But now all of it was stained by the truth. I loved a woman who could never fully be mine. I didn't want to see her, yet I couldn't stay away. The clinic had become a second home, a place where I'd once found joy. Now it was a battlefield of conflicting emotions. When I finally walked through those glass doors again, Sophia looked up from the reception desk. The moment our eyes met, a fragile silence filled the air. She looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped as though the weight of her secret had drained her completely. "Alaska," she said softly, almost a plea. I swallowed hard, forcing words through the knot in my throat. "We need to talk." She nodded and led me to the small break room in the back. It was where we had shared coffee and laughter only weeks ago, where my heart had started to believe in love again. Now it felt like the walls themselves held their breath, waiting. Sophia sat across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know I've hurt you. And I can't undo it. But you deserve the truth, all of it." I stared at her, trying to hold on to anger, but all I felt was aching sadness. "Then say it, Sophia. Don't hold anything back." Her voice trembled. "I can't leave her. Not right now. Our lives are still tangled, our finances, our families. Ending it isn't simple. And part of me is still afraid. Afraid of what letting go will mean. Afraid of what it means to give myself fully to you." The words sliced through me, sharper than any blade. "So you're saying this is it? That we don't have a chance?" She blinked back tears, shaking her head. "I'm saying I love you, Alaska. In a way I never expected. But I can't give you all of me. Not now. And you deserve someone who can." I pressed my palms against my knees, fighting to stay upright when all I wanted was to collapse. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? You walked into my life, healed my dog, healed pieces of me I thought were dead. And now you're telling me I can't keep you." Her tears finally fell, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. If I could rewrite everything, I would. But I can't change the timing. And I won't lie to you anymore." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us. My heart screamed to fight, to beg her to choose me. But my soul, the part of me that had endured loneliness, abandonment, disappointment, knew the truth. Loving Sophia meant setting her free, even if it broke me in the process. I stood slowly, my voice steady even as tears streamed down my face. "Then this is goodbye." Sophia reached out, her hand trembling, but stopped short of touching me. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say more, but no words came. She just sat there, broken, as I turned and walked out of the clinic. That night, the house was unbearably quiet. Gimi rested her head on my lap, her warm eyes searching mine as though she understood the heaviness crushing me. I stroked her fur, whispering into the stillness. "She's not ours, Gimi. Not the way we hoped." The following weeks blurred together. I kept myself busy, filling hours with work, chores, anything to avoid drowning in memories. But Sophia lingered everywhere, the smell of coffee, the echo of laughter in the back of my mind, the warmth of a hand that was no longer mine to hold. Sometimes, late at night, I replayed her words, "I love you, but I can't give you all of me." It was both a gift and a curse, to be loved yet not chosen. Still, I couldn't hate her. She had given me moments of pure light in a life that had been mostly shadow. And for that, part of me would always be grateful. On a quiet evening in late autumn, I took Gimi for a long walk along the trail near the river. The sky was painted in shades of amber and violet, the air cool against my skin. Gimi bounded ahead, tail wagging, her joy untouched by human complications. I watched her chase leaves and realized she was the thread that tied it all together. Without Sophia, Gimi might not even be here. Without Sophia, I might still be drowning in silence. When we reached the overlook where the river curved wide and endless, I sat on a bench, pulling my coat tighter around me. Memories washed over me. The first time I saw Sophia smile, the way her eyes softened when she talked about animals, the way her laugh filled the emptiness I thought would last forever. I closed my eyes and let the pain come, sharp and deep, but also cleansing. Love doesn't always end with forever. Sometimes it ends with lessons, with scars, with gratitude for what was, even if it couldn't stay. Gimi nudged my knee with her nose, and I leaned down, pressing my forehead against hers. She healed you, didn't she? I whispered, my voice breaking. And in some ways, she healed me too. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying away the last of the leaves. I stood, watching the horizon darken, and took a deep breath. This wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the one I had. As Gimi and I walked back down the path, the words formed in my mind, a truth both bitter and beautiful. She healed my dog, but broke my heart. And with that, I kept walking forward, always forward, carrying both the ache of loss and the quiet strength of having loved it all.